Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Be Honest podcast. Today I'm super excited to have Sue Barries on, also known as King Lexa. You guys might be thinking like, wait, what? Yeah, Sue used to be a professional dominatrix, and we're about to dive into her fascinating experiences in that world. I want you to know I am so excited for this. Like,
I can't wait to share my heart out.
girl, I'm so excited. Yeah, so you're gonna share some juicy stories with us. And then part two is gonna be on the way. We'll explore, your relationship with Ash and all that stuff, and we're gonna get real deep and vulnerable. I mean, in part one too, but part two as well.
Uh-huh.
So everyone just needs to stay tuned for that as well. So everyone give Sue a warm welcome.
Thank you.
You're like, that was too much. Okay, so King Lexa, let's just jump in. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay, so first we're gonna talk about, you growing up, your sexuality. We're gonna touch on that a little bit. So, first question, where did you grow up?
Oh gosh. So I grew up in LA, California, but I also grew up in South America, Peru. So
Oh,
right next to Colombia, Brazil, in that area. When I was younger, I would spend a lot of my childhood traveling back and forth.
oh, okay. So you had family that was in Peru?
Yeah, I'm Peruvian. My mom and my dad are both from Peru. My dad currently lives in Peru. And at the time, my parents were still married, and my dad's business required him to be back and forth. And he always wanted us to be raised in the USA. He knew the advantages that it had to be raised and be born here. So he sacrificed us moving here, but then he also wanted to be there. So it was just a lot of back and forth,
Yeah.
being raised in Peru and the USA. Uh-huh.
Did you like that? Did you like going back and forth?
As a kid, no, I hated it. As an adult, I'm very grateful for what it's taught me to be able to acclimate to different people, different cultures. As a kid, it was very rough. It was very challenging, but you know, it's pressure that makes diamonds. And I'm very grateful for my dad for putting me in uncomfortable situations because it only made me who I am now.
Totally, totally. No, I get that. So, when you were in LA, did you go to college? And if not, what did you do instead?
Kind of went to college. I mean, technically, I did. I showed up. I went to classes, and I decided that college was not for me. It literally, I mean, I was also using drugs, which didn't help. And I was using drugs as an outlet to enjoy school. I don't know.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I really hated school. It would depress me. And I back then didn't have the courage to tell my parents that. So I just stopped going to school without them knowing. I never finished. And I was just aimlessly going through life at that point.
Okay. See, I have a lot of friends that have had the same experience. Like literally college is not for everyone, you know? Like
Mhm.
college is not for everyone. I have people close to me that like went to college and they ended up, you know, they would go, but they ended up not like fully being like immersed in college because it just wasn't their thing. You know what I mean? And I feel like the education system here in America is really pushed on people, which it can be a positive thing,
Yeah.
100%. Because if you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a doctor, like you have to go to college, obviously. But
Yeah.
there's so many people that are doing amazing. You, for example, and you didn't have to like, get an education for it, or like go to college for it.
It's true. Yeah.
So you are a part of the community, and you are engaged to Ash. I just had her on. Um, and you used to date men though. So I'm really fascinated with that. So when did you realize you were gay, and when you were with the men, did you ever question it, or like just tell us? Just tell us the brain.
I realized I was gay in high school. That's when I started somewhat accepting that I could like women. As far as dating men, I've only had one real boyfriend my whole life. I was probably 15 or 16 years old. I just got a boyfriend to get a boyfriend. I wanted it to seem like I wasn't gay. And I had been single for so long. At least it felt like so long because I was only 15.
Yeah.
Everybody was having boyfriends. My cousins were having boyfriends. And I was like, oh my God, I don't want to be weird. I need to get a boyfriend. So I just got a boyfriend. But I didn't realize how gay I actually was till I have this like perfect image in my head. It's very alive for me. I was in high school. We were in the locker room, not locker rooms, our lockers, you know, where you put like your binders and stuff in between class. And here I am putting my, I don't know what book in my locker. And the girl next to me, which I believe was my friend, I don't even remember, she was talking about this guy and she had all these feelings. She was so excited to go on this date and they held hands. And I'm just like, I don't feel like that. Boys don't make me feel like that. Why is she talking like that about this guy? I don't get it. I just felt so alienated. It was weird for me to hear her talk about men in
Yeah.
that way because I just couldn't relate. I just didn't understand what I wasn't understanding.
Yeah, you're like, why do you feel these feelings towards these men? You're like, I've never felt this way.
What's wrong with me? I don't feel that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like that's really common. Like, I feel like that's really common with people that, because for example, me, like, I dated men, but I wasn't really interested in them. But like, I did it because it was the norm. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I realized that, like, I had friends that were like, in these long relationships with men and they were talking about like, oh well, I want to get married, like I want to, like I feel this way, and I'm like, am I just like a weirdo? Like, why am I not thinking about marriage? Why am I not thinking about like the future with this man? Like, why? You know what I mean? I feel like I was just in that, like, I was kind of like a robot when I was with
Mhm.
men. I was just kind of like going through the motions. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
I totally feel heard. Definitely. That was my experience as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's extremely common. And it's honestly sad because it's like a mental battle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you're with the men, you're like, at least with me, I'm not speaking for everyone. It's like, why don't I feel this way? And then the beauty of figuring out yourself and then figuring out, like, girl, you're not into men, you're into
Yeah.
women. And then it's like this release and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Like, that's why.
Now I don't even know what's worse, being anxious and nervous to go on a date or feeling nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I know. Okay, great. I feel heard as well. Okay, so when did you fully come out? I saw that you posted something about coming out twice. So can you
Mhm.
explain what happened and what you mean by that?
Oh, yeah. So I came out for the first time to my parents when I was 15, 15, 16, maybe 18. I was 18, I believe, 18 years old. I came out to my friends at 16, but I came out to my parents at 18. And it wasn't something that I did willingly. I got caught. What happened was that, like I said, I was a very troubled teenager. I was just doing everything you don't want your kids to do in high school. So I literally overdosed, almost died, and my mom sent me to Peru. She was like, I can't handle her. She's crazy. Like, literally put her in a mental hospital. And my dad, who hadn't really been with me for a couple years because he's been in Peru, my parents are now divorced, he was like, no way. Like, my daughter is not crazy. I'm not going to send her to a mental hospital. I'm going to have her go to therapy. We tried therapy, and then he found this rehab that didn't use any types of drugs to treat the issue. That was
Mhm.
very important for my father. He didn't want to treat a drug addiction with more drugs, with like
That makes
patients. You know what I'm saying? Which is very wise of him for someone who knows nothing about drug abuse and addiction. Anyway, so I went to rehab, and in that rehab, my doctor heavily believed in the if the family isn't cured, then the patient will never be cured because that's her environment. So um it was like he wouldn't treat me if my mom wasn't willing to show up and my father wasn't willing to show up, but especially my mom, because he knew that this is all happening in Peru, by the way. He knew that if I went back home to the USA, everything again was going to show up and I was going to go back to my habits, which with this case was drugs. So in that meeting, my mom flew out to Peru. I don't know what she told her people because I wasn't there in the room. She had like her own therapy and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and my sexuality was a big thing for her. It's something that she knew, but she never heard me say, and it was that no communication, where there was like a lot of just misunderstanding, tension, unknownness for her. So basically, I'm in rehab, and my mentor is like, your mom wants you to talk about you being gay today. Like, you have to come out today. And I was like, what? And I was so scared. I'm 18 years old. I'm still a baby. And it was in that room where I had to come out. I literally had like 2 hours to prepare.
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's traumatizing.
It was traumatizing. But
Yeah.
more, it was traumatizing because of what I made that experience mean, not necessarily because of what happened. And
Yeah.
that's like really a key distinction and just overall humanity.
Yeah.
There's things that happen to us and then what we make it mean, and they're not always correlated.
Totally. No, I hear you. Sorry. Phil wants to say hi. Phil, come here. You're such a he is still a kitten. So,
He's wild and oh, look his little white toes.
no, he's an asshole. He is an asshole, people. Um, well, that is a very unique coming out story. I honestly feel like the fact that you had a doctor that, or was it your psychologist and psychiatrist, like
My doctor there, my mom, my dad, my psychiatrist. I forgot
all
maybe
of them.
some other person like there. There's
Yeah.
like a circle empty, just us six, and they're just waiting for me to come out.
See, I don't know. It's like I don't. Okay, this is what I was gonna say. I feel like your doctor is good. Like it's awesome that he or she, I don't know, was it a boy or a girl?
It was a man. Yeah.
Okay. It's awesome that he was like, I'm not going to treat her because, this is like a family thing. Like obviously this stems from somewhere in the family. So if mom's not willing to get help, then like you said, Sue is just going to go back
Mhm.
to America and it's just going to be a whole process again. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome that he was like family needs to be involved. I think that's
Very
awesome.
wise. I respect that doctor so much. I'm so thankful for him. Yeah.
And it's like and it's also like he's like, I'm not gonna waste my time because it's true. I feel like a lot of doctors try to focus on the patient, but they
Mhm.
don't realize that like, okay, what is home life? Like what does this stem from? Why does she feel the need to get into drugs? Like what is so I feel like your doctor was a good person for that. The whole coming out thing, how they like forced you to, that's what kind of like, I don't know, how do you feel about that? Do you think that was like a good way for them to go about it?
I don't like to say use the word force. I could have said no, and it would have never happened.
Okay. Okay.
I definitely had a say in it. Uh, could they have done it better? I don't know, because the person I was back then, I don't know if I could have handled any form of coming out. Everybody that wants to come out, they're waiting for the perfect time. There's never a perfect time. I
Yep.
don't know how they could have made it perfect. I don't think there is a perfect way to come out. That's just how I came out.
Yeah. No, no, that's true. That is true. I don't really think there is a perfect way because everyone's way of coming out's different. But I
Yeah,
feel like there is like I guess when I ask that, I'm like, I guess I think of how you were feeling in that moment and you weren't ready, obviously. Like you weren't ready to come out, but it was one of those situations where you had to. And so,
and that's why I made that reel about coming out twice. If I had the tools, if I had the distinctions, it would have been a different result, but not because of the setting, but because of who I am in the setting. You know what I'm saying?
yep.
Yeah, who I was is what created the trauma, the meaning, and
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I learned that literally in my late 20s. Here, at 18, you don't get that. I
Yeah.
didn't have that wisdom, that self work.
Yeah.
But hey, I went through it, hoping, and now hopefully I could turn that trauma into something that people can learn from and not have that same experience, no matter how messy the situation and circumstances may be.
Yeah. No, I hear you 100%. I love how you can look back on that traumatic experience and make it into something good. And I feel like you've had like obviously a lot of time to think about that experience, but I feel like that could be something that could really affect people. And maybe even like cuz you said your doctor was like, "Hey, your mom wants you to come out," right? That's what your doctor said?
Something like that. I don't remember that well. All I know is that they're like, you need to come out. Your mom knows.
Yeah. I feel like that could cause a lot of resentment towards a family member, but did it or are you like, "No, we're good."
That didn't cause the resentment. What caused the resentment was my mom's silence when I came out.
Mm.
My mom is,
Mm.
now I understand her better because I'm just, I guess, an adult.
Yeah.
My mom, when silence doesn't always mean rejection. I made it mean rejection. Sometimes silence means I'm processing. This is
Yeah.
something really heavy. And just because I'm gay, it's really selfish for me to expect for someone who isn't to just get it. Like, you should just get it. You should just understand it. You should accept it right now because I'm saying this right now. I didn't have that sympathy, that patience for my mother.
Yeah.
I made it mean so many things about her. She's homophobic. She doesn't love me. I made that silence mean so much about her that wasn't the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what robbed me from having a healthy coming out experience.
No, I get that. I get that. I feel like I'm the type of person, and I'm starting to learn this better,
Mhm.
where in my brain, whenever people give me silence, I'm like, oh my God, like, do they hate me? Like, do they, it's because they disagree with who I am. It's because of this, and that. And it's like, not always. Like,
Mhm.
I have to realize, and this is what I was trying to say, I have to realize that people grew up differently, like being gay could have been something that's like maybe they don't know much about it, maybe they grew up knowing that it's a sin, knowing that it's a this bad thing, so it takes them a second to be able to adjust. And like, for example, my mom, I wouldn't say she gave me like the silent treatment, because she still was like, I love you, like, yeah, blah blah blah, but there were times when like I would have conversations and she would just be like, and it made me think like she's not ever gonna fully accept me. But
Yep.
what you said is like, sometimes people just need to process things, and that's exactly what my mom needed to do. And now like I'm able to acknowledge that. But at the time, it was the same way. I was like, why can't she just accept me? Like, why is it such a big thing? Like, I just like girls. Like, why is you know what I mean? It's like this thing in my head where I'm like, oh, and then I get angry, and then I'm like, and anyway, so I understand.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be something so casual. Like, let's just, like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. But what I really realized, and I made this whole video about it, is that I was just I was so insecure about my own sexuality. I couldn't even accept it myself. So I was looking for acceptance and validation out there. My mom needed to accept it so I can accept it. So when she didn't accept it, I like, that silence was so loud for me because I couldn't sit with myself because I couldn't even accept me. So that's where I somewhat went wrong, was expecting to find validation somewhere else. Because if I had it here, I wouldn't need it out there. My mom could be quiet. My mom could be like, I don't agree. And that's okay because I don't need you to accept me. And that's what I learned my second time coming out.
And I feel like that's amazing that you're like I said again, I feel like it's amazing that you can view that and be like, maybe I may not get full acceptance here or validation here, but like, I have validation within like, my friends, like my, whoever within myself. So like, why does it matter if I don't have it in like this exact spot? I feel like when it comes to parents, it could really affect people, whenever like a parent does not accept one of their kids fully. And so I'm not saying that like it didn't ever affect you, but I love that you're able to be like, if, it is what it is, like it's fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a matter of choice, and what do you get out of that? I
Yeah.
tried that. I let it affect me for literally 10 years, and it caused me and brought me nothing but misery. I can choose
Mhm.
that, or I can choose not to look for validation out there and look for it in here, work in here, because that's all I really have control over.
Yeah.
So it's not that it's wrong to seek validation out there. It's
Yeah.
more of like, okay, but what is that going to cost you? Are you willing to live life like that? I was not willing to live life like that. It's too costly. It robs me from too much. And it shows up in my relationships. It's not just about my mom. It's about how I show up with Ash, my fiance, how I show up with other people I've dated. It affects me everywhere. And I didn't get that until I was older, and how that relationship with my mom was affecting me everywhere in my life. My mom kept showing up in different people.
Wow. I feel like you could be like a motivational speaker.
Stop.
So that was the first time you came out. What was the second time?
Second time was literally, like I said, 10 years later. And I was at this point in my life, I've done a lot of self-work. I continue to do it. I like to say that self-work is a mountain with no top. There's no like, I got it, I'm fixed, I made it. No, it's a continuous muscle that you work, kind of like going to the gym, you know. If you want to stay fit, you got to keep going to the gym. You got keep showing up.
Mhm.
So I was in that place in my life, and personal development was so new to me, and I was understanding everything I just shared. Wow, this is affecting me in my relationship. It's affecting me everywhere. I can see it now. I'm not blind to that. Like we took off the blindfolds, and I was like, okay, I've been in a relationship at this time with a different woman, not Ash, for like 6 years. My mom knew nothing about it. Nothing. I felt so inauthentic. And in that moment in my life, I had been learning to be authentic. And to be authentic, you must be authentic about the places you've been inauthentic. It's not like, okay, starting today, I'm going to be authentic. No, there's all this other shit, excuse
Mhm.
my French, that I've been lying about. And now I'm going to pretend that didn't happen. And from now on, I'm going to be authentic. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I got to clean up where I've been inauthentic. So I was going through my life calling people like, I've been lying about this, I've been lying about that. This is the truth. Literally cleaning up my whole life.
Wow.
And one of those areas was my mom and my sexuality. So I talked to my mom and I was like, Mom, I remember we were on my way to my grandma's house and I was like, Mom, well, first of all, I got to rewind. I had created a promise to my mom that I want an authentic relationship with her. And I told her that. I was like, Mom, I want to create an authentic relationship with you. And I realized in order to do that, I must share the parts of me that I have been inauthentic with. And I want to talk about my sexuality. That's literally how I started. In Spanish, though, because she speaks Spanish.
In Spanish though. How did
For me,
how
yes.
did how did that conversation go? Was she open to it or was she still
Same silence. But I was a different person. I could be with her silence because I could finally be with mine. I wasn't seeking that validation anymore. My mom was free to be herself. I didn't need something from her. You know what I'm saying?
But
So
yeah.
she was silent. And then I was like, that's all I said. I let her be silent. And she said, I've waited 10 years for you to talk about this again. And that literally broke my heart.
You know, I feel like it's obviously your sexuality, but like why couldn't your mom have brought it up to you and been like, "Hey, can we talk about it?"
I mean, that's something you need to ask her. But okay, I would imagine it was uncomfortable for her. She didn't know how to go about it. I mean, my mom, it's her first time living life too. I know we've all heard that quote before. We expect our parents to just know how to be parents, to have this like perfect manual. If your child is gay, this is how you talk about it. This is how you approach about it. She didn't know. And she comes from Peru, literally middle of nowhere, a small little town, a very Catholic. And I expected her to know how to approach her lesbian daughter, you know? Uh,
100%. No,
I
I
can
hear you.
I can blame her, I can make excuses, but that doesn't give me power. That turns me into a victim.
Wow, I feel like you've done a lot of self-work throughout
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah. I mean, my late life, I started when I was 26, I believe, and now I'm 32.
I love that. And it shows. It shows because you were like you're so emotionally intelligent, at least from what it seems like. So, go you, girl.
She can only speak. Hi.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So, let's see. Okay, so that was the second time of you coming out. I love that. So, you came out once and that was an experience, and then the second time was like a freeing experience. You just wanted to just
Yeah. I was coming from a place where I am sharing this with you. I don't know if I told her this, but I'm coming from a place where I'm sharing this with you, not because I need you to accept me, but because I said and I promised that I would share my life with you. And I know, Mom, that sharing my life with you doesn't mean just sharing the parts that I think that you may agree with. That's not being authentic to you. That's not being authentic to me. So I'm going to share it all. Whether you like it, great. Whether you don't like it, great. I'm still going to share it because I
I
want her to be in my life, not just parts of it, like the good parts, the pretty parts. No, I want her to be in all of it because I love her. And I really had her get that it was coming from a place of love. that I really do love my mom.
Oh,
Yeah.
so cute. Oh, no, I hear that. I feel like, and I've said this again, I love the way that you are able to view that because, again, a lot of people have, broken off relationships with people because of, the parents don't accept them, which it's like it's their choice. If they feel like they need to cut those people off, then that's them. But I love that you're able to, like, if someone is able to get to the mindset that you have, like, you came out to your mom for the second time and it was silence and it didn't affect you. You were just like, I'm here. I'm able to acknowledge that, like, she feels a certain way, but like I'm going to be able to continue this relationship with her because I have mentally put myself to the point where I can do this with my mom. Like I'm going to accept her with where she's at. And I feel like if people could have that mindset, which that's hard. Like that's why I keep bringing it up because I'm like I feel like that's so hard to get to, and I feel like if everyone had that
Yeah,
mindset.
it's hard when you're not in the context of it, but all I'm doing is just choosing love and choosing acceptance. But people come from a place where they're like, you should accept me, but they're not doing the same back.
Yeah, no, I get you. I hear you. I hear you. Okay. I could talk about this forever, so we're gonna move on to sobriety, okay? I'm a
Right.
yapper. I can talk about one thing forever, so I'm trying to like make a mental note, like Kinley, don't yap too much. Okay. So you mentioned how you growing up, you in college, right? Or high school? Which one was it when you started? Um,
I started using drugs when I was 15 years old.
okay, so yeah. So you started using drugs when you were 15. How what was the process? Yeah, like tell us everything.
It started for fun. It was actually introduced to me by a family member. And we went to a rave and I tried it and it was so fun. And then I went to high school or middle school, whichever one. And the same drug was being used. So obviously I felt safe, comfortable because I've done it before. And I abused that drug every weekend with my friends. And then that led to me being introduced to more drugs and like harder drugs. And by the time I was in college, I was using very hard drugs. Um, I was like 108 pounds. I mean, I was skinny. I was like a stick.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that's basically my journey with drugs. I basically have tried it and done it all. Hmm.
Wow. How did you get sober? I mean, I guess you kind of
Not
told us.
really. You would think the rehab thing was it. It wasn't. I went to rehab, and this is before I started doing hard drugs. So I actually went to rehab. It was alcohol and party drugs like ecstasy, MDMA, weed, which I would just anything you put in front of me, I would do it. It's not like I had a preference. Didn't even like weed, to be honest. So I went to rehab. They treated me, and what I learned in rehab was that my drug use comes from a place of me not being able to deal with my emotions. So it's funny that you say I'm emotionally intelligent. The version of me that wasn't looked for drugs to feel or not feel and be myself because I couldn't be myself without drugs. Drugs gave me that courage, that confidence that me being sober, it just didn't exist. And I used drugs to that advantage because I wanted to hook up with girls and, talk to girls, and being drunk or tipsy and using drugs helped me get what I wanted. So that's how it
Mhm.
started.
Okay.
Yeah, I went to rehab. I got sober there, but then I came back, and the same relationship that was causing me all this trauma or desire to use drugs, I allowed it back into my life. That's where I went wrong. I didn't have the emotional intelligence. The relationship was very, very uh, toxic. I mean, I'm getting cheated on. I'm cheating on her. Um, yeah, just dealing with that, taking her back for I think the fourth time. She cheated on me while I was in rehab. While I'm in rehab, she cheats on me. I'm forced to break up with her because my dad found out I was still talking to her. I wasn't allowed to be in any type of relationship because that triggers me to use. And I promised not to see her again. And I lied because I came back to the USA. First thing I did was go out and see her. So then I started using harder drugs. And what got me sober from that was actually down the line in my early 20s. I had a thing with this girl, and she was like hardcore druggy. She made me look clean. And she got sent away to rehab. And her getting sent away really did something to me. I was like, wow, she's getting sent away. Now it's just me and all these drugs. Like, what am I doing with my life? And I just decided to quit that day.
That's that's again, that's amazing that your brain was able to be like, I don't know, because I have an aunt. She has been in hard drugs since probably middle school,
Mhm.
and she's like in her 50s now. And it takes a lot to get sober. Like it does. It takes a lot. It's a mental and physical like strain on your body. Like it's a lot. And she would always talk about how, you're sober, but then one day you get introduced to it again, and it's like you have to choose, and it's like the hardest thing. It's like one of the hardest decisions that you have to make. And anyways, I just see that one day you were able to mentally, like while you are taking these drugs, these hard drugs, your brain is mentally able to be like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this to myself? You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I feel like a lot of people that are taking hard drugs, it's hard for them to be able to realize that, because for example, my aunt, like she unfortunately she just relapsed, and now it's like we don't know where she's at. So it's like really unfortunate, but she always talked about how like in those moments where she was like taking drugs, it was never like I need to get clean. It was always like when is the next time I'm going to get high? Like who can I go to? Like how can I figure this out? And so again, it's amazing that your brain was working with you. Your brain was your little friend.
Oh, yeah. I just, in that moment, that girl that I liked was sent away to Indiana for rehab. And I was like, who am I going to be when she comes back?
Yeah.
Like,
It
who
put
am I
things
going to be?
into realization, yeah.
And that's what I'm like, no, I'm not going to be stuck where she left me.
Mhm.
Especially if she's out there getting sober. Yeah, I'm not going to stay here being a druggie alone.
You're like, "I need to find someone." No, I'm just kidding.
Get alone? I got to get sober. Gone. So, what really helped me get sober, though, was at the gym. My new addiction became going to the gym.
Okay.
Yeah, it was so much an addiction that the owner of the gym turned me into a trainer, and I was basically training everybody else in the gym for him.
I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. See, I've talked to so many people. They either talk about mental health or they
Mhm.
talk about sobriety, and they talk about how the gym literally saved their life. And I wonder what the like math, what the statistics, like what the science is behind that. Like I really want to know because the gym has really helped so many people. And it's
Um,
I don't
hmm.
know. I just get really interested about that because a lot of people talk about that and I'm like, "Huh.
I
I
think I
wonder."
know what it is. The doing hard things builds your self confidence. Going to the gym is very hard. Even just going and showing up is hard. But when you're lifting weights and you're like about to give up and you do those 3 more reps and you actually do what you said you were going to do, that builds your self-confidence. And I believe that's what keeps me going back to the gym because when I'm comfortable, my mind is uncomfortable. So I know that when I put myself in hard situations that really require 120%, when I feel that I could only give 100, that right there, that 20% is what fuels me and keeps me showing up and just creates my confidence. People always want confidence. How do I get it? How do I get it? Put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in, you'll get it.
Mhm. I think you said this on one of your little reels. It was something about like being uncomfortable, or what was the quote that you used? It was so good. It was like, honestly, I don't remember, but it was amazing. I was like, yeah, it like related to me because I feel like, and I've had this conversation. Sorry, I just butchered that. I don't remember what quote you used.
I don't remember either.
It was something about like having to put yourself in uncomfortable situations.
The courage talk that, yeah,
Yes.
people are waiting to be fearless to do something, but it's that fear is never going to go away. You just have to act in uncomfortable situations, and that's what makes you courageous. It's not the absence of fear. That one?
Yes, it was girl, it was something like that.
Okay.
But I've had people on here before, and we've talked about this so many times, and I've talked about how like all last year and this year, like I'm just putting myself in uncomfortable situations, not like uncomfortable situations where it's like harmful to me or anything like that. I am going to put myself in uncomfortable situations because I also had anxiety really bad, and I was like, I would get anxious and like overwhelmed, and like when I say anxious, like I would physically feel like my body was like vibrating, like I felt sick. Like it was the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And it's called God, what is it called? Whenever it's a type of therapy where you are not introduced, but you have to physically put yourself in a position where it's going to trigger you. But the more you put yourself in that position, the more your body will be like, oh wait, this isn't really as bad as I thought it was. I forgot what it's called, but it's some type of therapy. Um, but I started to realize like, okay, I'm gonna put myself in those situations where I'm uncomfortable because I know that I am capable of going out in public and talking to a new person. Like, come on, Kinley, like you're fine. Like you can do that, you know? Little things like that. So we're gonna touch or not touch on, we're gonna jump into your past with, is it dominatrix? You being a pro dom? How do I say that?
Pro dom, professional dominatrix, those two work.
Okay, period. So you were a pro dom at one point. So you're a personal trainer, but then you kind of were done with that and you became a dominatrix at 22, 23, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, just tell us how you started with that. Tell us just from the beginning to end, and then throughout it, if I have questions, I'll throw them at you.
Please feel free to stop me because it's a long story.
Yes.
I was basically a dominatrix for, I don't know, 8, 10 years. Yeah, something like that, if I do the math. How it started, like I said, I was a personal trainer. I did it for maybe a year. I felt like I was at the point where I'm safe to go out in the real world because I basically locked myself in this life of personal training. I worked from 5 a.m., didn't come home till 9 p.m. I didn't have time to mess around and get back into drugs. I also cut everybody off that was in that world. And so I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, like I'm so done being a personal trainer. This is not my calling to life. It was just a route to an end, right? To a new beginning. And I'm in this place and I'm in the gym. I remember it clearly. My phone's ringing. It's my friend, Allie. And she's like, Sue, you need to come to LA. I was like, why? She's like, you need to be a dominatrix. I'm like, what the heck's a dominatrix? Knew nothing about dominatrix. Never even heard the word before. And she was like, just trust me. You're going to be so good at this. I just know you're going to be so good. And I was like, sure, let's go to LA so I can be a dominatrix. And that's basically how it started. Yeah.
I love that. Literally, your friend literally was like, hey, I feel like you'd be good at it. And you were like, sure, why not?
Yeah, I trust my friend. What are friends for, right?
That's so funny. Okay, so you then went to LA and
It was
what?
so bad. It was so bad. So we go to LA. She found this guy on Craigslist. Okay. No shade to Craigslist, but it was really sketchy. I didn't know. I didn't even ask where she found this guy. So when you're a male dominatrix, the correct terminology is a master. So she found this master guy. So we go over to his house because he had the room that was like his dungeon space. And he was going to train my friend and I to be professional dominatrixes. And he had two dogs. What are those dogs that look like wolves?
Yeah,
Husky. He had two
oh,
huskies.
oh, okay, I was gonna say that, but there's other more
Yeah,
unique.
that
Okay.
one. The huskies.
Husky.
And I don't know. I thought they liked me. He was a little not okay in the head, obviously. And he posted an ad. Back then, you would post on Craigslist to be a dominatrix. That was how you did it. I think arrows existed too. I'm not sure. But anyways, he posted our ads. He took all these pictures of us and then posted our ad. And then depending on what call we got, he was going to train us on what we should be doing on that call. So anyways, we're on call. So me and my friend go out to eat down the street, and he calls or texts my friend and tells her, I don't like Sue. I don't want to mentor her. My dogs don't like her, so I don't like her. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, your dogs don't like me, so now you don't like me? Whatever. I thought his dogs liked me. They were jumping all over me. Oh, no, I think he said she doesn't like my dogs.
You're like, I love your dogs.
I love my dogs, and sorry I don't want dogs just like with their long nails all over my clothes and my
Yep.
body. Anyways, thank God he said that, because I did not want to be trained by him after I found out like what he was doing with my friend.
Okay.
Anyway, so the little that I found out about being a Dom, I was highly intrigued by it. I was like, I have to do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to post my own ad, because all I know is how to post an ad. I could do that. I wasn't really thinking much, obviously, because you can't just, I guess I did it, but you normally can't just show up and be a dominatrix. It's not like that. You got to like learn about it and do all this and whatever. I didn't do any of that. I just freelanced it, and I posted my ad and I started taking sessions. And back then, money at that point wasn't really even important to me. I left my gym as a trainer, didn't even come back to get my check. Like, I could care less about money. It was never about the money for me at that point. At that point in my life, money didn't start ruling me until later in my dumb career when I actually had it. So the beginning wasn't about money. I was just doing this, I guess, to pass the time. I didn't think I'm going to be a pro dom and travel the world and make all this money. I was not thinking that far. I was just living in the moment. This is fine. Let's just do this. And I would do it out of Motel 6. I'd book a motel and then see the clients, basically. And my first experience in a session, I think it's important to share because that's what kept me going, I guess, was supernatural per se. I felt this high. Maybe that's why I loved it, because I was a recovered druggie. I felt this power high from being a top that I had never experienced. Okay. And I just wanted more of it. And that's what kept me accepting these sessions and doing it, forever, I guess, because I just quit not long ago.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you started you started doing it out of Motel 6.
Yeah.
You were doing the damn thing. Um, did you ever get like nervous, like scared that there was going to be a situation where there's like a creepy, like it's like, if we're being honest, it's like a perfect scenario for someone to literally like. So was there ever a time where you were like, this might be scary? Like, what am I doing?
The only scary thing I found was the people that would stay in the Motel 6s, like across from me, or the people that would be standing outside. They creeped me out, and I was concerned. They were obviously doing drugs and selling them. My environment was concerning, but not the people that I was sessioning. And it's not to say that it's very safe, that what I was doing. I'm very clear that what I was doing was very dangerous and very unsafe, and not the way to do it as an actual professional. And I'm not preaching for 1 second that this is okay or what you should be going out and doing. This is just what I did with my negligence. And happily enough, nothing happened to me ever. When I came out to my mom about being a dominatrix, and my dad and my brother, their first fears were, and this happened at the end when I was like in my late 20s, when I was doing that personal growth and cleaning up everywhere, that part.
Yeah.
Um, their first fears were the men that I was seeing, that I would get assaulted by them, or they were really scared for me. But what's funny is that in my experience, all the men that I've seen are actually scared of me. They're just so respectful and so usually shy and just dweeby, you know?
No, yeah, I remember when we were on the phone, you said that you were like a typical man-hater lesbian until you entered the life of BDSM. But now you really enjoy them and find them like endearing. So like I don't know, I feel like as a man-hating lesbian, not really, I don't hate men, but if I was in a position like you where I was doing, dominatrix, I was a pro dom,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I would find them endearing. I mean, I'd be like, "Thank you, you're paying my rent." But like I don't know. Do you get what I'm saying? So like how do you why do you think your brain is
I think
like, "No, I really respect them. I really think that they're endearing."
I think it's hard for you to understand because it's trying to explain gravity. You can't explain it. It's an experience, like trying to explain balance.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to explain it. So back then, I just never felt connected to men, never had a connection with them. Obviously, not romantically or sexually, just at all, and didn't have any of that. I didn't really care to understand men, never really understood them, never really knew them, never really gave them a chance like that. So when I became a pro dom, I got to see a side of men that they don't show to the world. I got to see a very vulnerable side to men that not even their spouses get to see. Some of them were married. And I found it very endearing that they came to me with such trust. There's a lot of trust that goes behind the scenes of being a pro dom. You're doing things to men that are very, very vulnerable and very, very not societal, like society wouldn't accept it.
Yeah.
The role reversal. And to have a man want something that society is so against tells me a lot about him as a person. And I got to live that with them and be that safe place for them. And that's just a beautiful, beautiful experience, whether you're a man or a woman. I've never had that with men. And I think that's why I had that disconnect with them. I also learned to value their creativity and their freedom. Men, the men I've seen at least with me, they're so sexually free. The things that they do, oh my gosh, I'd be so embarrassed to do myself. And I just admire their courage and their sexual freedom because a lot of people don't have that. They're too busy. What will this people think? What would this
Yeah.
person think? Do I look good doing this? Men just don't give a rip. They just don't care. And I find that so endearing. Also, a lot of the things that they come for me to do are things that I personally I think are so cute and just they're not sexual like how what
Yeah.
I perceive sexual or sex as. It's not that. It's like, oh, I just really want you to wear high heels, and I just want to be your boyfriend that buys you the expensive high heels, and I just want to lick them. Like, okay, like that's great, that's awesome, that's so cute. Yeah, you can lick and kiss my heels all you want. Go and buy me Louboutins. That's fantastic.
That's
Um,
so yeah, it's like for $1,000 an hour. Yeah, you can lick
yeah,
my heels.
exactly.
So speaking of like the things that like men wanted, what were some of those things? Like what was the most like common things that people came to you with and wanted you to do?
Okay, so I am very much known for my verbal humiliation skills. Do you know what that is?
Yes, yes. But
Okay.
explain to the people.
So basically, humiliating men with my words.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. And it can go into different avenues. There's a thing called gay humiliation. Men love for me to make fun of them for being gay, even though they're not, but the idea that they are, and turning that into a role play,
Hmm.
making fun of them for their small penis size, whether it's big or small, it doesn't matter. They want to be humiliated for it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because it's kind of like seeing the word yellow, but the color is blue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I have guys come with like pretty big penises and I have to pretend it's small and it's like really hard. So I got trained in it really well, but
Yeah.
yes, kind of tricky. But anyways, I did it. And there's like slut shaming, which I make fun of them for being such a slut. And it's always in the sense of, it's never in the sense of like you're out there getting woman. No, it's in the sense of you're a slut for a penis. You're a slut for other men. It's always in that humiliating context. So I was very good at that. I was very good at talking shit. I always say it's because of my Latina-ness. We just do it anyways.
Mhm.
I get it from my mom. She's like that too. So yeah, it came very natural to me. And then I was also very well known for doing forced scenarios. Obviously, it's consensual. So consensually forced scenarios, and that can be anything. And that is one of the things that I was really good in because I could actually honor my word when I said, okay, this is what you're agreeing to. this is our safe word. But if you are telling me to stop and it's not the safe word, right? I'm not stopping. So I don't feel bad. And that's something
Yeah.
that they really liked about me and I made me stood out as a pro dom, was that specifically I would really dive deep into that world of consensual force play. And I was really damn good at it. And I really loved it. So those two things. And lastly, I would say anything to do with my harness. They would call me daddy, you know, and
I love
yeah,
this.
that whole world, those top three things were what I was and still am really good at. Yeah.
Oh, Ash. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. That's funny. What, and maybe this might be like somewhat of the same question, but what is the most unique one that you did that you were like, huh, this, I haven't really done this? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. I'll never forget this guy. So he comes to me and he's like, I have a balloon popping fetish, and all I want you to do is, he's like, do you have a leather thigh high boots? And I was like, I do. He's like, good. Don't worry, I'm gonna bring the balloons. You just make sure you have those boots. And I was like, okay. The whole session was me popping these balloons in my leather thigh high boots for an hour while he is having a ball, time of his life. It's like the best thing ever. And that was the session. And I found that so, like I said, I find it so cute and endearing. Like, this is what you're into, you know? Sure, you know. And that is one of my most memorable experiences because I've never done that type of session again. That's definitely a fetish.
Yeah. No, and I feel like that's like an easy one. It's like, okay, I'll
Yeah,
pop
it's
these
easy.
balloons.
But the whole time, it's not silence. I'm talking. I think that what people don't understand that about BDSM is that it's more verbal than it is physical.
Yeah.
It's more about what I say. Sometimes a true person that's really deep into their fetish, I could be quiet. They don't care about me, right? But in other scenarios, a lot of it is about what I'm saying more than what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
that's I think one of the things that people, a woman that's get into this career, have a hard time doing is getting the verbal right. Yeah, that's what really makes an outstanding dominatrix.
Yeah.
Knowing what to say, how to get into their mind. It's all mental.
Yeah. I get that. I get that 100% because then it can be kind of weird and awkward for the man because it's like, okay, you're doing this, but like it's silent. Like I feel weird. You know what I mean? Like it needs to all be, I don't know what the word is, but I get what you're
They need to get into the headspace. Is the word headspace? The
headspace.
headspace.
Yes.
You got to get them into the headspace. If not, it's just, for example, I'll never forget. I had this very masochistic client in LA, and like super masochistic, like needles in his nipples. Ow! I really masochistic, love to bleed.
Oh my
And
God.
one day I started engaging in these acts, and he's like, "Wait! I'm not in the headspace yet." And what I learned in that experience was like, okay, wow. So if they're not in the headspace, then I'm just hurting them,
Yeah.
because masochist finds pleasure in pain, but if they're not in the right headspace, then you're just freaking hurting them, and that's not a good way to go. So I learned a lot with him. We were really close friends as well, so we had that trust in each other. I was able to experiment and do things that I normally wouldn't do with the guy that's seeing me professionally. So I really got to learn about masochists with him and how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have so many questions.
Yeah.
That's so interesting though. Like, I mean, and because like whenever I hear the word, what is it, a masochist?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that like they get hurt, and then well, I don't think that like if they're walking down the street and they like stub their toe, they like get turned on. Like I'm not saying that, but I feel like I don't know. I get what you're saying though. Like they have to be in that mindset. Like that makes a lot of sense. Like I'd never really thought of that. Like I feel like when people hear the word masochist, they just think pain is pleasure, but like they have to be in the headspace to find pleasure from the pain.
Exactly. Yeah, you get it. Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
get it. I get it,
Well, it's
girl.
just like us and just having vanilla
Yeah.
sex. Same thing. If we're
Yeah.
not in the space, then you're literally just assaulting me. You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%. Yeah, it's like you got to warm me up a little bit before we. Okay, I get that. So I'm assuming they tell you what they want
Oh,
beforehand, and like, is there a script or is it like organic? Like, what is the process of
yeah.
this?
Yeah. Most men will tell you exactly what they want. They won't give you, most of them, there's like that 1% that will give you a script, but most of them will be like, I'm into nipple torture, I'm into ball torture, I'm into CBT, I'm into bondage, I'm into um, sissy play. They'll give you their whole bouquet of interests. My job is to be like, well, at least this is how I handled my career. Okay, these are your interests. All I need to know, I don't even need to know your interests. Just tell me what you're not interested in. I
Yeah.
don't want to ever cross those boundaries. I don't ever want to cause trauma to you physically and mentally. Um, so tell me that, and I got it from here.
Okay.
So that's what I would do. And then I create the role play. I create what happens when they walk in the room. I create it, but that comes from knowledge and doing what I've been doing for so long that I understand what they need more than they do. A lot of There's that 1% of men that do have a script, even dialogues. Believe it or not, I've
Yeah.
had a couple of those. Like, you need to say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this. Um, those are fun too. It gives me a mental break because my mind is always working when I'm in a session. It can be draining when you're doing sessions back to back to back. So when a guy gives me a script, I'm like, oh, yes, like I get to relax.
Yeah.
I don't have to think for once. As a dom, you're doing all the thinking, which is funny, is because the reason they want to be in this session is they personally don't want to think. They want me to take control and do all the thinking. So it's nice when they give me the script and then I don't have to do the thinking.
Totally. No, I get that. So is there like a process that every client goes through before they come to you, or is it just like random? Like, what is the process? I feel like they have to be like, I don't know if it's screened or just making sure that like they're legit, you know?
Yeah. So I do want to emphasize that I shared how I started. That's not
Yes.
how I like maintained my career. I ended up realizing that I can only get away with so much without knowing. The reason why I think I was able to get away with it in general was because I am a naturally dominant person, specifically with men. I don't shy away from men. I don't get nervous around men. I don't have that for men. They don't scare me either. So
Period.
I was able to show up in a way that they wanted, without training. But it's one thing being dominant, like being naturally dominant. You can't be naturally knowing how to tie bondage. Nobody's born knowing how to tie bondage. So there was things that I realized that I'm like, I need to actually be taught.
Yeah.
And I went and found a professional dominatrix who had been doing this for over 30 years. Everybody knew who she was in the industry, and I hired her to mentor me. And that's how I learned how to properly do things professionally and safely, not just for me, but also for my clients. And I'm very glad I did that because I can't say I would be as successful as I became if it weren't for my mentor, Kara. And by the way, I'm still very close with her. I love her to death. I'm moving to LA soon. I can't wait to like hang out with her. I have so much respect for her. She really, really gives it all for the industry. Till this day, she has workshops, and I'm always going to support her.
Oh,
My life wouldn't be what it is financially, mentally, everything. My love for men without her. But yeah, so how to properly screen clients. The proper way to do it is to ask them if they've seen a Dom before, a pro Dom, give you their number, their website, email, whatever it may be. Then you go and message that Dom, call them, email them, and you have them share if this client was safe or not. Anything I should be aware of as a Dom when it comes to this client. And then they verify that client, and then I can go safely see this client. That's how I do it. I have a friend that's a Dom that likes to ask for their IDs. I don't do that. I know that a lot of the high end clients need to keep or feel that they need to keep a very anonymous, low profile, and they don't feel safe giving me their ID, which honestly, I don't blame them. They're giving
yeah.
a random woman who's a freaking dominatrix their ID.
Yeah.
Like, who do I think I am? Like,
That's so funny. No, it makes sense though. Like I get it. And kind of going back to what you said about how you like respect these men because they're vulnerable. It really like I've never really thought of it this way, but like it is a societal norm to do X, Y, and Z, and there's certain things that that aren't normal. And that's why people come to you, because it's like they can't tell their wife, like, I mean, they could if they wanted to, but most of the time they don't want to. Like, hey,
Yeah,
I want you to pop a balloon in
yeah,
like latex or whatever. And it's like, so I don't know. I get why you're like, I don't want your ID, because the whole point of you coming to me is because you're vulnerable and you don't want to show the world this. So you're
yeah,
just showing me this. And so
yeah.
I don't need all of that information because
Yeah,
it
that
needs,
proof that he's trying to do this. Yeah, no, I
yeah,
get it. I respect that a lot, and I've always told my clients I respect the privacy.
totally.
Always, that's number one for me.
Totally. Okay, so yeah, we kind of like I just I just started asking you so many questions because I was just so intrigued. But
Yeah,
we do need to know more of your story. So you hired that girl that is a pro dom, and I think when we were on the phone, you said she like took you to her dungeon to like show you stuff and like
yeah.
to teach you. Number one, can you tell us exactly what a dungeon is? And then number two, just tell us the rest of your story.
Okay, so a dungeon is basically a place where you go see a professional dominatrix. Most dungeons have a certain aesthetic. They're usually dark. There's usually different rooms in a dungeon. It could just be one room, but there could be like a bondage room. There could be like a wrestling room. There could be just different themed rooms where you do different things. And that is usually where most DOMs, not all, because I was not really into dungeons, do their sessions.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, period. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so whenever you so you didn't do them in dungeons often whenever you had clients. So where did you do them?
I just started doing sessions in upscale hotels. That became my thing. I was always more into it feeling more real.
Yeah.
I wanted it to feel like this could happen in any ordinary day versus some fantasy dungeon place that is just feels so fake to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't really my brand, I guess. It just wasn't what I'm into. So I did things that I'm into,
Yeah.
and that way I would attract the men that are into it. And I preferred that. I preferred the luxury vibes, I
Yeah.
guess, rather than because then like they can go to the bar, get me a drink, and we can have a cocktail. It's just a different experience, and that was more my personality
Yeah.
versus a dungeon, which is like so like this,
Yeah. And that can be
you know.
yeah, and I feel like that can be overwhelming for the client. It's like, oh, I'm going to a dungeon. I feel like the route that you took, which was, the more upscale hotels, it could make you probably feel more comfortable as well, but also the client because it's more organic. And if this person is new to having a dominatrix or, I just feel like it's more organic and it probably made people just feel so much more comfortable and wanting to hire you because if the other dominatrix are like, no, it's only in a dungeon, I bet they could be like, I don't want
Yeah,
that, you know?
some guys really like the dungeon. I've had guys that are like, oh, can I see you in a dungeon? And I'm like, sometimes I have done that before. I made exceptions, but there are men that like the experience of it being a dungeon and the darkness of
Yeah.
it. Just whatever. To each their own. Some people like chocolate. Some people like vanilla. You know, choose.
No, I get that. It's yeah, every people have their own preferences. I totally get that. Okay, so yeah, you started doing it in upscale hotels. Can you tell us though, because for example, me, I'm obviously not super educated on dominatrix and BDSM and that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to straight up ask you, are you having sex with these people or can you tell us the differentiation between the two?
In vanilla terms, no. There's no sex as far as what we deem sex to us.
Yeah.
If you ask a submissive, kinky person, yes, it's sex to them because they're getting off to it. They are sexually aroused by the
Act.
experience.
Yeah.
I had a really rough time accepting that I was a sex worker when I was a sex worker. Kind of like accepting that I was a lesbian when I'm a lesbian. I didn't understand why I'm called a sex worker if I'm not having sex with them. But a sex worker is basically I look definition up. I might mess it up, but it's basically the exchange of a service that has and that one person is getting aroused by or by.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if let's say I'm selling my panties, that I'm a sex worker now. I'm not getting off to it. We're not having sex, but I'm selling it to a person. There's a transaction of selling for their arousal.
Yeah.
That's a sex worker. So it was so hard for me to accept that. But once I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I am gonna own it. I am a sex worker.
Yeah.
Just how I own my sexuality, I had to go through that same process with owning that I'm a sex worker, and I'm not better than someone that's actually doing those things that I was so looking down at and didn't want to be. I'm not better than them. They're not less than me. This is just what I'm doing, period. So there's no sex. What is going on is they are usually coming to it with their own hands. Sometimes I'll provide a vibrator for them because that's humiliating. Vibrators are for women. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I tell them you can vibrate like a girl, you know? So that's basically as sex as it gets.
Okay.
So are we having sex? Depends who you're asking. I would say no. Somebody else would say yes. Now, what really blurs the line in BDSM that could be sex to a lot of people is pegging. Men love to hire doms to get pegged. Now, do you consider that sex? I mean, it's not my body part going inside them, but if we say it's not sex, so do lesbians not have sex when they are using a strap on? It makes you really wonder, what is sex, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's up for you to decide. But as far as the original thing that we think of when we think of sex, no, that's not happening. Yeah. But that does happen in Europe. I've heard it happens in Europe. That's totally legal there to do that in general. And I do hear of DOMs offering those services there.
Wow, interesting. No, yeah, whenever I asked you that, I was like, the lines can be kind of blurred because it's like, I feel like people do interpret sex differently. Like you said, like people may think two girls, like lesbians, like, well, they're not having sex because like what, it's just a finger going in or it's just like a strap. Like it's not really sex. And so, but in my brain, I'm like, no, I'm having sex with my partner. Like, hello. So the lines can be blurred. So I get that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. So you are in the hotels and that's where you're meeting these people. And you're trained by this girl. So now are you considered a pro dom at this point?
I mean, there's no certificate for me to show you that anybody could basically just say they're a pro dom.
Okay.
I think the fact that you're getting paid for it makes you a pro dom. Yeah. There's no like. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? There's no proof, but yeah, I consider myself a pro dom at that point. Yeah.
Okay, so you're trained by her, and then when we were on the phone, you said it was to the point where you were charging like a lot, and these people were really like, they saw your price and they were like, oh, she has an expensive price, which probably means that she's pretty good at it. So you were getting hired a lot, and you said you were flying around the world. So just tell us that. Tell us just
You know, so when I became a dom, maybe 3 months in, I was like, oh my God, wait a second. I have so much money. I wasn't counting. And then it really hit me like, I am making so much money in this career. It's crazy. I need to step up my game. That's when I hired my mentor. I really need to start taking this seriously. And that's when I started taking it seriously and taking it to new levels. And at the time I had a girlfriend, and she really much supported what I was doing. I mean, she was my cheerleader because nobody else knew what I was doing. I was too embarrassed to share with people. And she was really the only one that was there. Like, you could do it. She really believed I was the best before I was even the best. And I really cherished that support I had from her. She was my backbone in the beginning of my career, and I owe a lot of credit to her. Also, my friend, we got to do it together. We got to grow as DOMs together, and that was a beautiful experience. I wasn't doing it alone. I had her. So I started charging a little bit more than what people were, the rate was.
Yeah.
And I think back then it was like $2.95 an hour women were charging. I was charging 325, 350. And that was like, whoa, especially because I was nobody in the industry. I didn't really know much. I just said, I want to charge this much. And I just charged it. And then as I started getting into my career deeper, I was like, I want to charge more, moved it up to 500. I started getting really greedy with my money. Being a dom at the beginning was not healthy for me. I kind of got this superior
Mindset.
aura mindset, and men love to feed it to me because that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, goddess, you're the best goddess. You deserve everything. You shouldn't lift a finger to work. And a lot of that really got into my head, not in a healthy way. Because when people didn't treat me how these submissive men treated me, it was a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
So they put me on a high horse, basically. I had to come down from that. But I started getting ruled by money at that point in my career. And I didn't realize that till I did start working on personal development. And there's nothing wrong with wanting money. I really don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. But when you're pretending to be into something else in order to get money, that's where the inauthenticity comes. And that's what I realized with my whole inauthenticity thing in my life. And I was like, I'm being really unauthentic. I'm just raising my rates to these men when I really, when like, when all I really want is to financially dominate them. That's what I want, but I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. I'm trying to financially dominate men that didn't ask to be financially dominated. And that's just not authentic of
Mm-hmm.
me. So I had to clean it up because I was in that part of my life where I'm cleaning everything up, not just my mom, like everything. So that's when I switched my branding to being a financial dominatrix. And that's when I was able to freely and authentically be like, I'm a financial dominatrix. I'm going to charge you $1,000 an hour. These are my interests. If you align with them, great. If you don't, bye. So when now I have my power back versus sneakily raising my rate. There's no power in there.
Mm-hmm.
Authentic. I can do a whole video on this, and I will on my TikTok and Instagram. Authenticity is power. When you get that, you really own the world yourself. So I got that. Started raising my rates $1,000 an hour. I started attracting even more elite clients, and I loved it. I loved my environment. I always loved my environment, but even more now. I loved the men that I would attract, the conversations that we would have, the sessions, and it totally changed my life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, bumping it up to $1,000 an hour. And I feel like when you did bump it up to $1,000 an hour, I bet it was one of those things where you're like, hopefully I get clients. Hopefully this isn't too much, you know? And then when you started getting clients, I bet you were like, period.
Yeah, I remember I was sitting back then I lived in a high rise. I was sitting in my high rise in my little desk, and I was going through my website, and I was like debating, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I do it? And I was in that state of fear,
Mm-hmm.
and I just pulled the trigger.
You
I'm like,
got
let's do
to.
it. Let's see what happens.
Yep.
Worst case, lower my rates, And I
Exactly.
did it. No regrets whatsoever.
Period. It's a good example of if you want to do it, just do it. Like, and because if you don't ever try it, then you won't ever know if it's going to work or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it worked. And it worked really great because one of my biggest problems being a pro dom doing sessions in person, because this is my whole in-person career. I also started my online career, is that I was so overworked. I would go to New York. I would have like 5 sessions back to back to back to back. I'm not going to the gym. Really bad for my mental health. Remember that. For me, it is very bad. I wasn't eating as much. I wasn't resting. I'm just emotionally drained because seeing all these men back to back to back. Then I have to get on a plane, go to the next state, do the same thing all over again. When I raised my rates, I was able to attract less clients that would pay me more, but in the end, I would make more money.
Mm-hmm.
So my quality of life automatically increased, and I didn't have to work as much. And that was very life altering for me. And I also started diving into the online world because I knew that most financial dominatrixes are online. Few of them are in person, at least in my time. So I started diving into the online market, which is a whole different animal, a whole different thing. And it was another huge learning point when I did that.
That is so interesting. So whenever this was all going on, were you dating during the time? Was dating difficult? Like, how was your dating life during this time?
For this whole time I'm a dominatrix, I'm with the same woman.
Okay.
Off and on. It was a very unhealthy dynamic.
Okay.
I met her at the gym when I was a trainer.
Okay.
So she was with me from the beginning before I was even a dom. She was the first person I told I was going to be a dom because we were starting to it was our first date per se, and I had just decided I wanted to be a dom. And I remember she was in the shower. I go up to her and I was like, "What do you think about me being a dominatrix?" And she says, "You know they have sex." That's like literally her first thing. And I was like, "Do they?" I'm like, "They don't." And then we didn't talk about it again. Actually, that happened at the gym when I was training her because I was her trainer. We didn't talk about it again. I didn't bring it up. And then on our actual first date, when she was in the shower, she brings it up. She's like, "I did my research. I think that'd be great if you're a dominatrix." And she really did all her research. She knew more about being a dominatrix than I did.
You're like, educate me. What am I getting myself into?
Because one day I had a session and I'm like, "This guy says he wants a Roman shower." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, this and that." I'm like, "How do you know what a Roman shower
Wait,
is?"
what's a Roman shower? I'm scared.
Shower is when a guy wants you to throw up on him.
How did you make yourself throw, or did you?
I think I just throw up. Yeah. I stopped doing that because it's really bad for your teeth and just my
Yeah.
health. I did try it. I mean, who else was ever going to ask me to throw up on them? I had to try that experience.
You're like, I had to for $300 an hour.
Too nosy. I want to know what it's about.
I'm too nosy. That's so funny. Okay, so you were dating the same girl. So and it was, would you say that it was toxic because your job was dominatrix?
No, she was so supportive all the way till the day we broke up, basically. She really liked my career. She had respect for it. She really encouraged me to lift the bar and do bigger and do better. And she was never once something that was in my way
Yeah.
from my career, ever. She was the opposite. I was very empowered by her love for my career
Wow.
and her belief in me. Now, um, like I said, this was a very on and off relationship that we had for 8 years. Um, our unhealthy relationship did impact me emotionally, but I didn't let that enter my career. If anything, it made me work more.
Yeah.
Because I'm a workaholic. So when things are bad in my life, I just work more.
Mhm.
So I just worked more. And that really got me out of feeling sad and all this emotions that I had about her and I in my life in the moment. So I ran away by just working more.
Yeah.
So if anything, I guess it helped me.
I was about to say, at the end of the day, I mean, it got you making a lot of money. So
Really, but I was still in the end unfulfilled and very lonely. So
yeah.
that's what was there for me. I had it all. I had the perfect high rise, like all glass. I had everything I ever wanted financially, but I wasn't fulfilled at all for 1 second. And it wasn't even about her necessarily. It was my inauthentic way of living my life. My mom not knowing who I really was, not having a relationship with her, and then me being the same way with my girlfriend. What do you know? I'm the same way I am with my mom. I'm the same way with my girlfriend. And I'm wondering why we have this on and off relationship. So it wasn't until I worked on the source of my issues or the source that everything else started healing and my relationships started blossoming. And yeah, so that's my experience. Not the norm. Every pro dom I know does not have my experience. They are hated and judged for what they do. Their partners pretend they're okay with it. 3 months in, you need to quit. You're a freaking slut. You're this and that. I can't trust you. That is more of a reality than what I have been luckily able to experience as a pro dom.
Totally. No. Yeah, I feel like it was just like the perfect career for you in that part of your life, you know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
What'd you say?
Yeah, it was a perfect career for me.
I feel like it was.
Yeah.
Okay, how would you say your sexuality played a part in all of this? I know that's a loaded question, so.
Um, yeah, it was great. I think I had a not a head start, but like a superpower because I was a lesbian. I don't view men sexually. So when I do these things with men, I don't get icked out by it because I just don't sexualize men.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I know a lot of my straight friends that are DOMs struggled with that because who they're in a session with, like physically, is the same people they're going to bed with.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
they have a hard time. And this is for women that aren't into men that are submissive. And that my experience, women who are into dominant men and then seeing a man be submissive is a huge turnoff for them, and they have a hard time like separating the
Yeah.
two and not seeing men as weak. They see it as weak. That's not my view on men at all whatsoever. Um, so for me, I didn't have any of those filters because I'm just not attracted to men sexually. So that was never there for me. It's just a body. It's just an arm. It's just a foot. It's just this. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't care.
Yeah.
Nothing's there for me.
What
Yeah,
if you were a dominatrix to women? Do you think that would have been different?
I couldn't do it. No way. I refuse to see women. I tried once because I was curious to see what I had to face my fear per se, right?
Hmm.
It's hard for me to like judge it, but then not have done it.
Hmm.
So I tried it. So weird. I felt so weird. I felt gross. Honestly, it felt too real for me. It felt like I was having sex,
Yeah.
and I didn't like that because for me to have sex with someone, I have to have an emotional connection with them. I have to actually like you as a person. And doing these things with a woman that I don't feel that way about,
Hmm.
it felt really forced and not flowy. It felt like I had to act. I don't know. It was awkward for me. I
Yeah.
didn't like it.
No, I get that. I get that 100%. Um, so was there ever a moment where, because I remember on the phone you told me something about a popper story where you got
Oh,
yourself in a situation where you kind of scared yourself. So can you tell us
I,
that story?
I did. Okay, so the only scary situation I've ever had with pro dom wasn't even because of what the man was doing to me, because men are never doing anything to me. I'm doing things to them. So this was in Atlanta. I have a friend that owns a dungeon in Atlanta, and I would use her dungeon. That's like the very few time that I would ever use anyone's dungeon is my friends. So I use her dungeon because I'm in Atlanta, and this guy messages me, and he's like, "I want to do a kidnap scene." Sends me his role play, and he comes, and he didn't tell me he was going to bring poppers, but he just brings poppers. Most people don't know what poppers are. It's this little thing that you buy at a sex shop. They're legal, but I don't think they're actually meant to be sniffed, but that's what people use them for. And you get this huge head rush, get really flushed, very red. And a lot of submissive men like to use it because it brings them into like a headspace that they enjoy. So he brought these poppers, but it wasn't the typical popper that I've been used to that I've always been using. It's the pop. It came in like a spray can bottle, like hairspray, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah.
I should have asked more questions about it. I didn't. I just assumed it's the same popper that you get in these little glass bottles that you just go like this and sniff.
Hmm.
So we did the kidnap scene. Part of the kidnap scene was me having like your typical scene, right? Where you put like a napkin or something over the person's nose and then they pass out. But he wasn't supposed to actually pass out. He was just supposed to be, poppered out. Well, little did I know, here I am. I have him in this kidnap pose. I have the handkerchief over his nose, and I'm talking my shit. I'm saying whatever I needed to say for the scene. And then I let go, assuming he's gonna just stay on his knees, and he just goes boom and collapses on the floor, like dead cold, like limp. And I am freaking out because that's not what's supposed to happen when you do poppers. You're still normal, right? And I'm freaking out, and he eventually comes back, and he comes back in a very off headspace, obviously, because he's just absorbed all this, and just yelling like he thought I was somebody else. He thought I was his wife or something. I don't know. He's yelling at me, and then later he apologized, like, "Oh, sorry, I thought you were my wife." I'm like, "No, I'm sorry. what is this? Like, what did I just use on you? I thought it was poppers. And then he started explaining that, oh, it's a stronger form of poppers. Anyways, that was my most scary experience because I thought I literally killed him.
Oh my God. That would have scared me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
So
ha I'm happy it wasn't worse than what it was. You know what I mean?
it was fine.
He
Yeah.
was fine. Good. Yeah, I remember you telling me that when we were on the phone, and I was like, "Oh my God, I probably would have been super scared too. Like, that's scary."
Yeah.
But
I think one of my biggest fears when I get in a session, it's not my safety, it's their safety. There's some type of no, there's some scenes that are very, very I forgot the right word for it.
intense.
You're playing with their life. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You're like on that line. And that's what I'm scared about, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, like some crazy thing going wrong and then yeah, do they have to like sign something before?
I don't make them sign that thing though. Most songs don't do that.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Those things can't save you. If you kill someone, a little paper ain't gonna save you.
True. You just got to be careful, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, what would you say are the main misconceptions about BDSM and just being like a pro dom?
Well, obviously the sex part that
Yeah.
you're having intercourse. That's the word. Intercourse.
Hmm.
Huge misconception. Another misconception is that you have to hate men to be a dom. I don't think that you can successfully be a successful, happy, fulfilled dominatrix if you're doing this from a place of hate. I believe it must come from a place of love. Um, and I think that's pretty much the top two. Oh yeah, and that it's an easy thing to do. That it's just you just say, "Give me money," and they give it to you. That's not the reality of being a pro dom. And also, lastly, that it's more of a mental than the misconception is that it's just doing things when it's actually more a mental game than it is an outside game with like making them do stuff.
So what made you get out of this career?
So what made me get out of this career wasn't because I stopped liking what I was doing. I actually loved what I did. I still love it. And I think it's something that I will still do every now and the blue moon. I still keep in touch with a lot of my clients. But the reason why I stopped was, first of all, I had met Ash, who is the love of my life, and it really started shifting how I viewed my future. Because now it's no longer me. Now I have my wife to be, who also I value, and now we're creating a life together. So I know that Ash wants to be a private jet pilot, and we had talked about getting married and having babies. And when I sat back and looked at that, I quickly and immediately knew that my lifestyle of being a dominatrix, it could fit, but not being the mother I want to be. If I wanted to be a dominatrix and be a mother at the same time, my kids would have to be taken care of by other people often. When I go on trips, it's at least a month long. Ash is a pilot, she'll be gone half of the month. I'm basically the stay at home parent, so I would be responsible for our kids most of the time at the house. Being a professional dominatrix doesn't align with the values that I want to be as a mother. So then I started thinking, okay, what if I'm just an online dominatrix and I just stop being an in-person dominatrix? Well, now my kids can't be around if I'm doing these sessions with men. The way I'm talking, the way I'm speaking is not something a child should be around, even if they're newborn. I don't want that energy around my baby. This is an adult experience, right? So I was like, okay, that's not going to work. And it could work if I hire a babysitter and like at my mom's house because I got to use my house, or I have to go get a hotel. I'm like, this is way too much.
Yeah.
Too many hoops that I'm trying to jump through.
Yeah.
You know, I got to figure something else out. So I gave up. I gave up my career and pursued something else that I am passionate about. Because it's not that being a dominatrix is my whole identity. I have other passions, and while I was a dominatrix, I was also on the side for fun, working on TikTok, working on Instagram, building those accounts just for fun. I never knew I was going to be a content creator or influencer. So thankfully, I had to build my audience large enough where I could start making. I was already making money off it, but serious money off a content creation. So I just shifted avenues. And the reason why I did it at that moment, this was last year, right before we moved to Utah, because most people are like, why didn't you just keep doming? You, like, it's not like you're pregnant yet. Building a business takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. I got to start creating my audience and like actually treating my Instagram, TikTok, and I have a lot of those, as a business. It's not gonna, I can't just wait to have a baby and then I'm gonna start working on my career. It doesn't work like that. So I knew this had to start now, like a year or plus in advance, in order for me to be where I want to be when our first baby is here. So that's basically why I quit so early on last year.
Yeah, it's because the relationship that you have with Ash and the future that you have with, like, you eventually being a mother, like, that's more important.
It is more important than the money, because the money was definitely there. I literally went from making good money to making, I would say, almost nothing, and that was, thankfully I've done that before. I know, it comes from a place of learning to detach myself from money. And that came because I was once really attached to it. So I could do it once, I could do it again. And I'm confident in my tenacity and my ability to not give up. I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm going to fail, but I know that I will not eternally fail, because I know I don't quit. So I just have to keep trying and trying and trying. And that's what's brought my success to Instagram. I recently just figured out what the hell I'm doing with Instagram. Literally. And I've seen the growth. Like since I finally discovered it after months, almost a year of failing on Instagram, I found it. I got it. And that growth has, and that finding all those failures has brought me to where I am now, which I feel so happy that I finally found my calling for Instagram. And that's brought me over like 7,000 followers just this month.
Dang, girl, good for you.
I know. So I'm very happy with what I'm doing right now. I was making, okay, so about my Instagram, because you were going to ask about my social media presence. I'm everywhere with social media. So basically, most people know me as the Zodiac Girl, King Lexa God, which is funny because that name came from my Dominatrix name. Just added God at the end. But that's my Zodiac accounts. I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok for all that stuff. That stuff I have it unlocked. It's automatic. I don't have to think much about that. But then when it came to my Sue Barries account, that's a new account. I just started working on it when I quit as a Dom, so a year ago. I didn't know what I was doing, like I said, until last month. A lot of it was just me and Ash videos, cute little videos of Ash and I. I just didn't feel fulfilled just posting like little music videos of how amazing my relationship is. It's like, there's something missing there. I felt like it was also very not individualistic. It was, my account was missing me.
Mhm.
It was just me and Ash. I needed some sense of individuality, and I know I have something to offer to the world. I just couldn't figure it out. And I got it. I figured it out. And now I actually can give value to my audience, not just cute little videos of my perfect relationship,
Yeah,
which is nothing wrong with that. But do you want to hear the breakthrough I just had about my Instagram?
let's hear it.
Okay, let's hear it. Okay. Okay, so what I realized what was missing was, and I'm going to give this example. You can't really have enjoyment for the sun without having without having experienced the rain. You can't really appreciate being warm without having being cold, right? Um, that's what was missing in my Instagram account. I was showing the sun, the warmth. I was showing all the good stuff, my perfect, at least looks perfect relationship. And that's great. People do get moved and inspired by it, but that's really inauthentic, and it doesn't really capture my relationship without you knowing the bad, the sweat, the me being avoidant, the me being a cheater, the me being all this stuff. You can't really appreciate the sun in my relationship without knowing the rain, the storms, the thunder, the tornado that I personally had to go through. So that's what I'm showing on my Instagram right now. I am showing you the nice, happy things, but I'm also showing you the dirt and how from that dirt I was able to grow flowers. So that was my missing link. And
Mhm.
now I think people can really relate to my content even more because we're not perfect human beings. We're inauthentic, right? We have insecurities, we have all this stuff. So I think showing that gives my happy, sunny content more meaning and more power than just showing the good times. So that's the recent breakthrough I've had. And I will continue to share myself twice a week. I do my talks where I share about these like dirty human sides of me that I've had. And sometimes they still show up, they never go away. So yeah, that's what I do now.
I
Aside.
I love that because it's like what we were talking about earlier. It's being authentic. And I feel like people know. Like if you're posting, like you posting the happiness, like that's authentic, obviously. But it's also
Yeah,
like people are also, they may start being like, okay, like this is cute, but like, what else? You know what I mean? So I get it. I feel like your followers have grown because they can now see like she's being vulnerable, she's being authentic. I think I commented on one of your reels the other
yeah,
day. It was such a vulnerable, like you are calling yourself out on the shit that you did in the past, and it's a lot of shit that people don't want to talk about. They don't want to tell their 120,000 followers, you know? It's like they
yeah.
just want to keep it down. They don't want people to know. And so I think it takes a lot, and it takes a lot of bravery, and that's what I was saying is like I feel like you've done a lot of self-work, and you've gotten to a place where you're very emotionally intelligent, and I think that's why people love you because it shows, you know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm glad that it's landed for you,
It
you
has.
know, what I'm doing. And that's my mission statement right now is talking about what people are too scared to talk about, but we're doing behind closed doors or we've done, you know.
No.
And, one thing I've learned is that people don't care to understand me. People care about being understood. So by me sharing these dirty, not plausible sides of me
Yeah.
helps them feel understood. And that's why they generally like it. They don't care about me, essentially, they want to feel heard. They want to feel understood. They want to feel validated. And I'm happy to be that person. Like, I don't need them. Like, again, I don't need their validation. I'm doing it so they feel validated in whatever they're going through. Huh?
100%. Yeah. That's so true. I love the way that you view that. I love that. Okay. We're at the end. We're going to do our hot takes. Okay. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay. You can go first. You go first.
Yeah. My hot take is that BDSM should stay an underground experience. I don't think it should be socially acceptable, is basically what I'm saying.
Okay. Why?
Because what makes BDSM is the taboo factor. If we make it normal, there's no taboo in it anymore.
Hmm.
The reason why men seek out pro doms is because it's not a normalized experience out in the real world. Most women are submissive. So if women are now free to be kinky and dominant and stuff like that, then this whole BDSM thing and the professional side would disappear.
Okay. So are you
And make my point even clearer, because you're like, oh well, why wouldn't you want women to blah blah blah, right? Because it sounds bad. um a, a lot of guys, I've had guys where their wives have found out that they're seeing a pro dom. Okay, most of them disgusted. How could you be the submissive man? Like, because to them they're this like alpha guy, right? So when they see the side to them, it's like, no, it's you're not a man. Like, I want to be with a man.
Yeah.
That's one side of it. The other side is the women are like, I'm jealous. I want to be your dominatrix. I want to be the one that does this to you, not some other random girl. Valid. Okay, I've gone in houses where I've trained the wife to be a dominatrix for her husband. Husbands hate it. They hate the experience of their wife that they viewed a certain way trying to put on this mask that they know it's not them.
Yeah, it's not authentic.
Authentic. And that's why DOMs need to exist. That's why it needs to stay the way it is. I'm not saying that I agree with them doing it behind their wives' back. I don't agree with that. But that's my
Yeah.
hot take, and it's hot for a reason.
It is hot. I like that. No, I get that. I get that. Okay, mine I wrote it down, so it's gonna sound
Yeah.
scripted, but I wrote it down because I wanted to word it correctly and not rant. Okay. Mine is it's unfair for teachers to be judged for having personal lives outside of work. They shouldn't be criticized for sharing fun moments like, like bikini pictures or having like interests that aren't strictly related to their teaching subjects. Socially, often people expect teachers to conform to like a certain image, as if they should act like the children they teach, which is just not realistic. It feels like there's this pressure to turn them as in teachers, into like robots instead of like recognizing them as individuals with their own lives and passions. And I say that because I'm a teacher, and it's a lot. A lot of parents have found my podcast and they don't like it, and they think that like since I teach the little ones, I shouldn't have a podcast that talks about queerness or sexuality or sex or stuff like that. And I think it's hard for them to differentiate that like I am a 25-year-old woman that, is gay. I go to the beach, I will post a bikini picture. I I am very sex positive, so I want to talk about it. And I think they can't differentiate that like the two. They think that since I have a podcast that's about this, they think I'm going to teach the kids like what scissoring is or something, you know? It's like, so that's my hot take.
Now they're gonna think you're advocating to be a dom. Doms.
I mean, I don't
That's
think
crazy. Yeah, I mean, I understand them not wanting you to talk about this in a classroom setting,
oh, yeah.
but I don't think I'm not haven't even looked into this because I don't have kids yet. It hasn't really been in my world, but it will be soon. But I think it's crazy to want to control them outside of school settings. It's not like you're posting it on your teacher website that you're doing this. And you know what I'm saying? The fact that they found it is their fault. Why are you looking? You
That's what I'm
know?
saying. And that's what I'm saying. They can't differentiate the two. Like I'm not doing this in the classroom with your kids. I'm doing it at home and your kids aren't even involved. It's just like if I were to go to a club on the weekend, I'm not bringing your kids with me. It's like,
That's interesting. I'm yeah, I'm amazed that that's even an issue. But that's even
oh yeah, it's totally an issue with a lot of queer teachers. It's honestly really sad. So, yep, that's my hot take.
well, love it.
Okay. Well, that's the end. Sue, thank you so much for coming on. You were very vulnerable in this episode. Thank you for talking about your journey with being a pro dom and talking about your sobriety. You're just an open book. And so I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting me. I had a blast.
Yes, of course. Okay, so for my listeners, I post every Wednesday. Part 2 will be coming soon. Me and Sue will be jumping into her relationship with Ash, her background with cheating. We're just going to jump into it all. So it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be very interesting. So definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, post every Wednesday. I have some cool people coming on, so definitely stay tuned. All right, bye.